Anime is a colloquial term for Japanese animation, a rather popular style that's been subbed and dubbed and emulated for its many hit series worldwide, drawing the attention of many loyal followers, including a very famous one from Virginia.
My name is ChrisChan, and I am proud to be playing my PS3 with my virginity. There's old trolls and new trolls and good in the fair. Sonichu, Roseichu, mine says senior year. And so I found a place where there are no homos. My happy man child face, it says the ChrisChan show. Yeah.
Over the years, Chris has taken quite an interest in the medium, whether it be for inspiration or for self-pleasure. It's managed to make itself a quite large part of Chris's life. Chris enjoys the art form to some extent. Although it's not his primary obsession, nevertheless he's watched a lot of anime, bought plenty of anime through the PlayStation Network, and swiped as many ideas as he can get his head around from his favorite series. It's not clear when Chris first discovered Japanese cartoons, although it's safe to guess that Pokemon or Dragon Ball Z were the seeds that sparked his interest, as it was for millions of other kids in America during the turn of the millennium. He was a serious Pokemon enthusiast by the late 90s, and by 2004 he had enough interest in anime generally to attend the Anime Mid-Atlantic convention in Richmond, Virginia. While Chris is often associated with online anime culture and it's often slapped with the weeaboo tag, he actually doesn't appear to be into anime as much as people think he is. He returned to Anime Mid-Atlantic in 2005, but wouldn't go to another anime convention for years. And even then, the only anime-oriented convention Chris has been to ever since was OmegaCon. He did consider a trip to Baltimore's Otakon convention in 2010, but primarily as a way of meeting Jackie in person. In his post on the Adult Swim forums, he didn't have much to say about the Japanese imports on the Adult Swim schedule, except the note that he didn't like the cartoonish male nudity in Crayon Shin-chan, big shocker there, and he wanted to see more animes featuring very close to nude girls. Even bigger shocker there. Chris's PlayStation Network account shows that he downloaded the entire harem comedy drama Shuffle in 2009. Given that it stars a generic anime protagonist who finds himself surrounded by willing women for no very good reason, Chris probably loved it. He also downloaded all of Gunslinger Girl in early 2010, doing plenty to undermine his contention that he isn't a pedophork. According to his Netflix queue from around November 2009, Chris rented a number of animes in big DVD sets. His anime sets centered around three of his likes: Sonic, Transformers, and scantily clad women. In terms of Sonic, only 3 discs were rented, all 3 centered on Sonic X. It is more than likely that before the queue was taken, he had seen the other discs that comprised the series. While he had most of the Transformers series that were made in the last 10 years, some of those were part of the Transformers saga, known today as a Unicron trilogy: Armada, Energon, and Cybertron. The rest of the anime, as stated earlier, revolves around women, strong women who are completely incapable of defending themselves without simpering all over a man, unlike some creatures we all know and love. Some of those films and series included Read or Die, Slayer's Return, Elfen Lied, and, probably the least surprising of all, Kekko Kamen, a comedic action series featuring a heroine who battles evil while stark naked. The last series might have had a particular impact on Chris, as the face rape of Jason Kendrick Howell in Sonichu 8 is very similar to the pubic hair jump, a move by which the title character of Kekko Kamin defeats her enemies. Elfen Lied is a rather surprising choice for Chris, given its notoriously dark and gruesome imagery and themes, but given certain elements of the series, perhaps it's not too surprising. In his chats about sex with Panda Halo, Chris mentioned that he's watched some pornographic anime, colloquially known as hentai, but he didn't go into further detail. During Chris's interview in the Internet Dream Lounge, he would recommend recommend the Shoujo series Nana. When asked what anime series he would recommend, the idea guys use imagery from Symphogear and Sword Art Online, Alternative Gun Gear Online as part of the brainwashing of Chris. Chris has watched a few episodes of Symphogear and has noted how one of the characters in the series, Chris Yukin, is referred to by the leader character Hibiki as ChrisChan. He hasn't made any word on Sword Art Online, but does own Sword Art Online Lost Song for the PlayStation 4. In 2020, Chris made the somewhat dubious claim that watching cells at work would strengthen one's immune system against coronavirus. Although Chris was interested in anime before he began drawing in his Sonichu comics, he didn't start giving the characters in his comics an obviously anime-inspired look until Sonichu issue 5, which he completed in the spring of 2006. This was almost certainly the result of Megan Schroeder's influence. She was a big fan of Sailor Moon and other popular Japanese cartoons, and Chris was pursuing her especially fervently at the time. Practically speaking, this shift in style involved giving his characters huge prismatic saucer-like eyes, which make them look more stoned than anime, or those weird other anime eyes. He also made use of creative elements that work in anime, but not in sequential comics, as well as tedious and extremely unnecessary cliches common to anime. Needless to say, despite the radical artwork style change in his comics, Chris was still cock-blocked. Since his relationship with Megan deteriorated, eventually blowing up in his face, anime hasn't been so obvious of an influence on Chris's artwork. He still goes overboard with the giant saucer eyes from time to time though. Like every other form of entertainment he enjoys, Chris views anime as a rich source of ideas that he can swipe and integrate into his own quote-unquote original work. Aside from the most obvious victims of his anti-creativity, like Pokemon, these are some of the shows he's abused. Bo 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 Bo, Bo 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 Bo. The My Little Pony greeting card that Chris gave to Mims matched the series up with Naruto. Cutie Honey. Chris quotes, almost word for word, Cutie Honey's transformation speech in Sonichu 5. It should be clear why he even knows about Cutie Honey. Dragon Ball. Chris's infamous curse Kamehameha attack is directly lifted from a similar attack from lead character Goku. Chris's Colossal Chan transformation from issue 10 is also based on the Super Saiyan 4 transformation featured in the Dragon Ball GT series. Excel Saga. Consciously and otherwise, Chris has lifted and butchered dozens of jokes from the series. Chris also briefly attempted to copy a dating strategy from the series. Full Metal Alchemist, one of Chris's My Little Ponies, is based off a main character, Edward Elric. Inuyasha. The entrapment of Wesley, Sonichu in Sonichu issue 2, rips off the similar entrapment of Inuyasha's title character. Also, Chris named Inuyashu as one of the 69 destined Sonichus and Rosechus. Macross Frontier. Blanket traced her illustration of Jigliami over a character from this series, and Chris unthinkingly traced over her tracing. Pretty Cure. Chris's Wonder Twin team up with his sister Crystal in sub-episode 8 lifts this from the popular Magician Girl series, one of Megan's favorites. Sailor Moon. Chris ripped Sailor Megtune from here, obviously among many other things. Samurai Pizza Cats. In a spectacular display of unoriginality, even by Chris's standards, he swiped this title to give to Quickville's platoon of robot defenders. Apparently, they deliver pizza in their off hours. Serial Experiments Lane. Lane Chu, a character that Chris created for the Watch Watchmen was named after the main character, Lane Iwakura. Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann. Simonchu and Simone LaRoche were inspired by this series, although Chris probably didn't realize that. Yu-Gi-Oh! Chris has made many fan-made Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards depicting himself and his creations. In Sonichu issue 5, Chris depicted Sarah Nicole Hammer's husband-to-be, William Spicer, as a character from the cards Yu Yu Hakusho. Chris's Zap Cannon attack in Sonichu issue 10 bears an uncanny resemblance to the protagonist's Reagan attack. At some point, Ivy got Chris to see the end of Evangelion, a movie that serves an alternative finale to the anime series Neon Genesis Evangelion, to the final 2 episodes of the series, to help incentivize him to finish the 10th issue of Sonichu. Chris's summary: a generic tale of a boy's struggle for acceptance, a lot like him. Chris apparently didn't see any symbolism in the film, yes, in a franchise infamous for its usage of it, or if he did see any symbolism, he's too stupid to see what it symbolized. And these are Chris's favorite parts of the series, the Misato and Kaiji sex scene, where you only see their feet, because it made him feel that he was a big boy and he was watching a no-kids cartoon, the Rei Angels that were kawaii and had boobs, the internal struggles of Shinji. Chris didn't like Asuka freaking out, everyone turning into orange tang juice, Rei Angels getting turned on by stabbing themselves, Rei melting everywhere, the unhappy ending because, as we all know, he can't stand anything that's even remotely depressing. Chris was familiar with Evangelion prior to watching the movie at Ivy's request, but not really a heavy watcher. Despite this, Chris owned a soap dish in the shape of the character Rei Ayanami, as pictured in his hotel at Anime Mid-Atlantic in 2005. It's likely that Chris saw this item at the convention, didn't even register this figure as Evangelion, and bought it because he thought a soap dish with a hot anime chick on it would make for a fun novelty item. That, and Chris spent a lot on stuff that he does not need. The end of Evangelion is known for its usage of the song Come Susertod, Come Sweet Death, performed by Arian Schreiber, which is played during its apocalyptic climax. This song has been used by Christorians and other certain followers as a theme song for the end of Christory, especially after the incest situation became public. Now, with all of that being said, it's time to talk about Chris's Japanophilia. Japanophilia, which is the appreciation and love of Japanese culture, people, history and media. Since his youth, Chris has been fond of Japanese media and culture. Sonic, Pokemon, PlayStation and anime are all Japanese creations that Chris enjoys. While Japanophilia is a well-established concept existing in Western society since the latter half of the 19th century, with the opening of Japan and becoming amplified in scope and popularity since the 1960s, Chris's love for Japan is on a whole different level. Chris has been known to prefer Japanese media over American alternatives, PlayStation 3 over the Xbox, Sonic over the Adventures of the American Rabbit, Lolis over CP, etc, etc. He has stated that a lot of media is better in Japanese. He also ranked Japan second on his list of countries he wanted to visit. In reality, Chris knows next to nothing about Japan. A good chunk of his knowledge comes from anime and parodies of anime. Chris seems to have a favorable opinion of Japanese people. He didn't exclude Japanese women from his love quest and has said he would date and go deeper with a Japanese woman. Despite this, his tendency to not care about people other than himself arises here. He has regularly confused Chinese and Japanese people and has also created stereotypical Asian characters. He also claims to be a huge fan of Japanese culture. When asked what he liked about their culture specifically, he said he liked their technology, ninjas, kung fu, which is actually a Chinese martial art, not a Japanese one, and the peaceful way of living outside of violence. What the last part means is anyone's guess. Chris also spends $31.50 per month on the premium edition of the Tokyo Treat Box, which gets him some snacks and trinkets all the way from Japan. To date, Chris has spent over $1,000 on this since at least October 2017. Chris has shown interest in the Japanese language. He said if he could learn any language instantly, he would pick Japanese. Currently, like all things Chris is known for, his actual knowledge of Japanese is quite shallow. He uses popular weeaboo words such as arigato, kawaii, sayonara, and senpai. A troll in Mailbag 3 compared Chris to a gay man in Japanese, but he was oblivious to it. In his videos for Miyamoto, he pronounces the Japanese names incorrectly. He also uses the honorific san incorrectly.
Ohio, Mr. Miyamoto-san.
In the comics, Chris portrays Punchy Sonichu as a kung fu master with slanty eyes raised in a dojo. When a fan criticized this stereotyping, Chris claimed that Punchy was not of Asian origin. Outside of the comic, Chris also misattributes the origin of kung fu to Japan, when in actuality it comes from China. He does a racist impression of a Chinese person and claims Japanese and Chinese people sound the same.
I'm willing to be friends with them and associate with them, just like any other woman, but I would not want to date a black woman.
Why not?
Just call me old-fashioned the way I was brought up.
Alright. Well, what about Chinese?
I don't mind Chinese people. They're okay. And I like Japanese people, too.
Yeah.
Hey, look at me, I'm Chinese. Look at me, I'm Chinese.
You're Japanese.
What?
Wait, was that Japanese or Chinese?
Ain't no other way. They're all stinky on it.
In a leaked series of emails, it is shown that Chris simply does not seem to know that China and Japan are not the same place, as he calls the Japanese account Chinese, failing to realize that they are separate countries with different governments, languages, writing systems, and currencies. In Chris calls Clyde out, Chris pretends to be Clyde Cash while doing an imitation of an Asian accent. This is presumably a reference to Clyde's Asian ancestry.
Oh, Mr. Clyde. I have a bit of a message for you in response to the one you sent to me recently. Yeah, basically this is the impression I got from your message.
Oh, look at me! I feel like a city man! Look at me! Don't look at my city, bro! Look at my city! Look at me! I am the troll! I should be trolling! I should be trolling it! Look at me! I can not get of Italian or something! I can be more lame! You want me to be more lame? I'll be more lame! I did the city walk! And I got a city walk! Look at my city walk! Oh! You took out my city walk! You see my city walk? I give you a kick in the head! Yeah! I'll punch you in the face! Yeah! Ready? I throw something at you! Bam! Bam! And if you don't like it, I throw something else at you! Yeah!
In his real-life dealings, Chris seems to have a positive or at least neutral view towards Asians. He stated that he would not exclude Asians from his love quest, at one point believed Emily to be part Asian. Chris appears to believe that Ching Chong is an actual Asian name rather than a racially insensitive mockery of the Chinese language. In November 2017, he was conned by the Idea Guys to make a drawing of himself in Sailor Moon where they speak in Japanese. The dialogue translates into memes and statements mocking Chris and not what Chris thought it meant. The first bubble speech, Chris thought it said, "I concur. John Elder had quite the autistic share and flair," but in reality it said, "I am a homosexual." The next bubble speech, Chris thought it said, "Quirky but intellectual," but it simply translates to, "I'm hungry." And the last bubble speech, Chris thought it said, "What a fascinating read," but it actually said, "You are already dead." The last line is a reference to the anime/manga Fist of the North Star. The text on the bottom, Chris thought it said, "Smart heart, smart minds, well-educated support," when in reality it possibly read as, "You look like the kind of person who fucks a guy in the ass and doesn't have the courtesy to ejaculate inside him." Chris believed that the signature was his name in Japanese, but it actually translates as, "I am carrying a penis." But it actually translates to, "I'm carrying a penis." About an hour later, he deleted the post from his Patreon, as well as the associated Twitter link. Chris has been playing video games since he was a child. He has played many video games from Japan, such as Sonic, many first-party Nintendo titles, such as Animal Crossing, and the Pokemon series. But Chris also plays many games made in Europe and the US, such as Little Big Planet, Mod Nation Racers, and Guitar Hero. So his tastes in video games are much more varied. His tastes in consoles, however, are much different. He was a huge Sony fanboy, buying anything they put out. He also showed tolerance to the Wii. His hate for the Xbox, the only major non-Japanese console, mostly stemmed from Chris's brand loyalty, more so than hatred for it not being Japanese. He may have chosen the PlayStation as it was Japanese, but hated the Xbox because it was a rival to the PlayStation and not because it wasn't Japanese. The reason he didn't show resentment to the Wii could be because it wasn't considered to be competition to the PlayStation 3, and he is a large fan of Nintendo. Chris, being a huge connoisseur of TV shows and movies, has stated his deep interest in anime multiple times. He watches anime with Japanese audio and English subtitles and enjoys Japanese animation over American animation, as he considers the anime stories and art style to be superior to the American counterparts. He also likes the fact that censorship is much more lenient in Japan due to some minor cuss words being allowed in TVY-rated TV shows. His interest in anime peaked after he met Megan, to the point where he started incorporating anime-esque art style into his comics. He continued to use the same art style to this date, although with minor changes. Many tropes he uses in the comics are also directly lifted from the series such as Excel Saga, Dragon Ball and Sailor Moon. Chris also finds many of the Japanese theme songs to be superior. Most of his favorite shows and movies are all Japanese, such as Sailor Moon, Samurai Pizza Cats, Excel Saga, Sonic X, Transformers and the Pokemon movies. Now, before ending the video, I want to talk about one more Chris in Japan related thing: Shoujo Beat, which was a manga anthology magazine specifically geared towards young girls, published from July 2005 to July 2009 by Viz Media. Chris sent a letter to them, which somehow miraculously got published in November 2005. In it, he stated how he related to the lead character of Absolute Boyfriend, particularly with her initially having troubles finding a sweetheart. He also used a comparison as a way to complain how he can't find a boyfriend-free girl. A response letter from Eris was published in March 2006. It offered some very good advice on how he shouldn't look only for pretty girls, and managed to early predict how Chris would fuck up his future relationships with women. Chris's published letter managed to offend his then gal pal, Megan, who voiced her discontent via an email to him a few months later. This is what Chris's letter said. Oh boy, Riko Izawa in Absolute Boyfriend sort of has the same problem I do. She can't get a guy and I can't get a girl. Here's my sitch. All the pretty girls already paired up with some jerk, thus leaving me with none to choose from. Also, nobody can tell off the bat a paired up girl from a boyfriend-free girl. At first, it's equally hard for Riko to find a girlfriend-free boy, but then she's granted this wish where she gets a girlfriend-free boy, although he's a robot, delivered to her doorstep. Lucky girl. I'm 23 years old. One would think that I've gotten a girlfriend by now, but no, I haven't. I'm stuck in the situation where if my parents should pass away, I will be a very lonely virgin. Christian Chandler. And this was a reply to Chris's letter. Pretty Schmitty. In your November issue, a guy was complaining about how he couldn't find a girlfriend. Was he only looking for pretty girls? There are plenty of girls who are not supermodel gorgeous whom he could date. It's not the outside of the package that counts, but the inside. A girl can be pretty on the outside but might be mean and self-centered or have other problems, whereas another girl could be plain or even ugly on the outside, but quite a beautiful, kind, intelligent person on the inside. If more guys would think about what qualities they look for in a girl and make sure those qualities don't just focus on her outer appearance, they might just find a girl to go out with. Otherwise, many girls will think, why bother? He'll just leave me for the next pretty girl he sees. Eris. And that was the video. If you enjoyed, you know what to do. And with that said, I'll see you later.